As the world turns its eyes toward the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, a series of notable diplomatic moves unfolded on May 21, 2025. Three major Western nations, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, simultaneously announced their recognition of Palestine as an independent and sovereign state. This was a tightly coordinated step aimed at promoting the two-state solution and injecting new momentum into peace in the Middle East. British Prime Minister Cameron declared on social media platform X today that the UK's official recognition of Palestine is meant to rekindle hopes for peace between Palestinians and Israelis and to advance the two-state solution. Similarly, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney emphasized cooperation to build a peaceful future for both sides, while also calling on the Palestinian Authority to commit to reform, demilitarization, and to hold elections in 2026 without Hamas's participation. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Foreign Minister Penny Wong affirmed that this decision is part of an international effort to restore momentum toward a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages. With this move, the number of countries recognizing Palestine has surpassed 140 and is expected to grow further. Yet behind these lofty declarations lies the harsh reality. Gaza is being flattened by Israeli assaults, forcing nearly 2 million Palestinians into mass displacement, leaving them without homes to return to. As of May 21, 2025, approximately 1.9 million people, nearly 90% of Gaza's population, have been displaced, living under the open sky without electricity, water, or internet. How can recognition on paper bring hope when bombs are still falling and Palestinian civilians face the threat of ethnic cleansing? Hamas's surprise attack on October 7, 2023, which killed about 1,200 Israelis and resulted in more than 250 hostages being taken, triggered Israel's massive military campaign. Nearly 2 years later, Gaza has been reduced to rubble. The Israeli army claims to have destroyed 20 buildings it accused of housing Hamas and 50 terrorist watchtowers in just the past 2 weeks, focusing on areas such as CX Radwan and Tenan Hawa. However, these operations have not only targeted military sites, but have also demolished civilian infrastructure, leading to accusations of widespread systematic assaults from organizations like Oxfam. Against this backdrop, the wave of recognition for Palestine has accelerated since 2004, with countries such as Spain, Ireland, and Norway leading the charge. The UK's move carries especially strong symbolism, as it played a pivotal role in Israel's creation after World War II. Canada and Australia, both close allies of the US and Israel, also mark a shift by stressing the right to self-determination under the UN Charter. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas welcomed the move, calling it a necessary step toward lasting peace, while Israel reacted angrily. Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir called it a reward for Hamas and proposed annexing the West Bank. This reaction underscores Tel Aviv's concern about mounting international pressure. The timing of May 21st was no coincidence. It came just before an international conference on the two-state solution in New York, scheduled for May 22nd, following the New York Declaration supported by 142 votes, which urged concrete, time-bound steps toward implementing a two-state solution. The actions of these three Western countries may provide fresh momentum, but they also raise questions. Is recognition enough to change the dynamics when conflict continues to escalate? History shows that similar statements in the past, such as the 2012 UN resolution granting Palestine observer state status, did not yield real progress. Instead, Israel continued expanding settlements in the West Bank, complicating the two-state solution further. This conflict is not merely a territorial dispute, but also a struggle over human rights, culture, and identity, fueling global polarization. Today's images of Gaza are chilling. Continuous airstrikes have leveled entire neighborhoods such as Jayun, Tufa, Shijaya, and CX 1. On May 20th alone, 107 Palestinians were killed, with another 20 killed on May 21st, including 16 in Gaza City. The humanitarian situation in Gaza has reached unimaginable levels. Famine is rampant, with more than 450 deaths due to malnutrition. In the past 6 months, tens of thousands have fled under blockade conditions, though many are too weak or too poor to leave. Amnesty International has condemned Israel's mass displacement orders as unlawful and inhumane, warning of permanent forced migration. Israel rejects this, claiming its sole goals are to destroy Hamas and recover hostages. Yet in reality, civilians bear the heaviest toll. On social media platform X, some call this a historic day for Palestine, while others criticize it as a reward for terrorism. The Gaza catastrophe is not only about casualties, but also the comprehensive destruction of infrastructure. Hospitals, schools, and water systems have been devastated. According to WHO reports, over 1 million children in Gaza face chronic malnutrition risks, while outbreaks of cholera and polio spread due to poor sanitation. Humanitarian groups such as Oxfam and the UN have repeatedly called for aid corridors to be opened, but Israel's blockade, justified on security grounds, has left convoys stranded at the border. Hundreds of thousands of families, stripped of all possessions, now live in makeshift refugee camps facing a harsh winter ahead. This raises fears of a new Nakba, where Palestinians may be permanently displaced from their homeland. Against this backdrop, Western recognition of Palestine feels hollow. The people of Gaza don't need symbolic recognition, they need an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian aid. Recent strikes that leveled 20 buildings in 2 weeks cast doubt on Israel's strategic intent. The UN Human Rights Office has warned that if the aim is to forcibly displace civilians, it could constitute a war crime. Yet the international community has largely stopped at issuing statements, while the silence of the U.S., Israel's main arms supplier, further complicates matters. Recognition from the UK, Canada, and Australia certainly brings diplomatic benefits for Palestine, boosting its standing at the UN, facilitating access to aid in international forums, and adding pressure on Israel, particularly as the U.S. still opposes recognition in favor of negotiations. The upcoming New York conference on May 22nd, following the declaration supported by 142 votes, could push for a new ceasefire resolution. However, is this truly a step forward or merely a symbolic gesture? These recognitions come without concrete measures, such as sanctions on Israel or halting arms supplies. Britain, once the godfather of Israel through the Balfour Declaration, now shifts course. But is it enough to redress history? This highlights growing criticism of double standards. Why recognize Palestine while Israel bombs Gaza without consequence? They call for peace while maintaining strategic ties with Israel, even indirectly supplying arms through the U.S. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki welcomed the recognition, but stressed it is only a step forward, not an immediate end to the war. On social media, some posts criticize recognition after 2 years of genocide, questioning whether it's a political game. With 1.9 million Palestinians displaced and homeless, what use is state recognition? Indeed, this appears to be double standards, supporting self-determination on paper while remaining silent before a humanitarian catastrophe. Compared with Scotland flying the Palestinian flag and calling for a ban on Israeli imports, the three Western nations' moves still seem half-hearted. Recognition is positive but lacks practical weight, and criticism of double standards is not unfounded. Many analysts suggest this is the West's attempt to save face after being accused of excessive support for Israel. Meanwhile, Israel sees it as a reward for terrorism, while Ben-Gvir's proposal to annex the West Bank threatens to escalate the conflict further. Abbas regards it as progress but stresses the need for more concrete actions to build a real state. This contradiction reveals deeper global geopolitical tensions. The West, particularly the UK and Canada, has long backed Israel due to historical and strategic ties. Now they shift under domestic pressure, such as pro-Palestine protests in London and Ottawa, and political changes like the Labour government in the UK. Yet without binding measures, recognition risks being empty. For example, Australia calls for a ceasefire but continues trade with Israel. This raises questions. Is this double talk, saying one thing while doing another, to preserve influence in the Middle East? The upcoming UN General Assembly may offer a chance to move from symbolism to action, with France and Belgium expected to join, and with Qatar and Saudi Arabia supporting renewed talks. Effectiveness will depend on an immediate ceasefire, aid access, and sanctions for violations. Otherwise, recognition risks being a reward for both sides without changing realities on the ground. In short, the moves by the UK, Canada, and Australia are a significant step, but amid the inferno of Gaza, they raise questions of double standards. Palestinians have lost nearly everything. The world must act with substance, not just words. The hope is that the New York conference will bring real change because peace cannot be built on rubble.